The Grolt were a people of order. Their very bodies, encased in segmented, slate-grey carapaces, seemed designed for straight lines and precise angles. Their society was built upon the unshakable foundation of the Grand Manual of Universal Procedure, a document so vast it was said its digital index alone required its own dedicated moon-sized server. For millennia, the Grolt had expanded across the galaxy, bringing their impeccable, if somewhat suffocating, brand of organization to all they encountered. They prided themselves on their intricate bureaucratic systems, their unwavering adherence to protocol, and their ability to file, categorize, and regulate existence itself. Then they found the humans. To the Grolt, humanity was an anomaly, a walking, talking contradiction. They saw a species rife with what they termed emotional spectrum deviancy, joy, sorrow, anger, love, all swirling in a messy, unpredictable soup. Human societies appeared to be in a constant state of near collapse, their rules contradictory, their leadership inconsistent, their methods haphazard. The Grolt, particularly the esteemed members of the Grand Directorate of Integration and Procedural Harmony, viewed humans with a mixture of pity and exasperation. Chaotic, Chief Administrator Lorgax Zorp often declared, his upper mandibles clicking in disapproval. Disorganized, and far too reliant on ill-defined hunches rather than established, peer-reviewed directives. He believed humans were a minor, if noisy, species, teetering on the brink, desperately in need of Grolt guidance to shepherd them into the ordered light of galactic civilization. Their first candidate for this benevolent integration was a young colony on a planet the humans called New Harmony. It was a typical human settlement, a bit rough around the edges, a community still figuring things out, but with a palpable sense of spirit and a preference for common sense over rigid dogma. Mayor Thompson, a woman whose pragmatism was as well known as her surprisingly potent home-brewed cider, led New Harmony. Administrator Lorgax Zorp, accompanied by his ever-diligent sub-administrator Vorg, arrived on New Harmony with a fleet of ships laden not with weapons, but with data slates and printing material. Vorg was the epitome of Grolt dedication. His carapace was always polished to mirror sheen, and he could recite 17,432 separate sub-clauses of the Minor Infractions Act from memory. He genuinely believed in the beauty of a perfectly filled-out form. Lorgax Zorp addressed the assembled colonists in the town square, his voice a monotone drone that promised efficiency and enlightenment. People of New Harmony, he intoned, the Grolt hegemony extends its hand in fellowship. We offer you the singular opportunity to join the galactic standard, to elevate your society through the proven methodologies of structured existence. We shall integrate you. What followed was the uplift package. It began with digital deliveries that swamped the colony's modest servers within hours. Then came the physical copies, pallet after pallet of densely printed documents, rulebooks, procedural flowcharts, and most terrifyingly, forms. There were forms for everything. Requesting a new power cell for a moisture vaporator required Form 734 Alpha, application for energy unit allocation, agricultural use, non-mobile. This needed to be cross-referenced with Directive 9 Gamma, environmental impact of localized energy drain, and then approved by the newly Grolt-mandated Subcommittee on Equitable Power Distribution, New Harmony Provisional Chapter, which, according to Grolt bylaws, required a quorum of 5, including at least one Grolt-certified energy auditor, a role for which no human was yet qualified. The colonists of New Harmony were, to put it mildly, bewildered. Simple tasks became Herculean labors. Building a new fence to keep the local six-legged grazers out of the vegetable patches now involved land use permit applications, material procurement justifications, and a safety compliance review that seemed to assume the fence was a Class 3 defensive fortification. Supplies dwindled because requisitions got lost in a digital labyrinth of pending approvals. Frustration mounted. Town meetings became nightly affairs, filled with angry, confused voices. "I just need a new gasket for the water purifier," exclaimed Jeb, the colony's chief mechanic, waving a flimsy piece of printed material. But according to Section 4, subsection Beta, paragraph 9 of the Fluid Dynamics Maintenance Schedule. I need to submit a preventative wear analysis report and get it notarized by a Grolt notary, but the nearest one is 3 systems away. Mayor Thompson tried to reason with Sub-Administrator Vorg. "Mr. Vorg," she said, trying to keep her voice even, "my people are struggling. We appreciate the offer of order, truly, but this is a lot. Can't we streamline some of these processes for essential items?" Vorg adjusted his optical sensors, which blinked rhythmically. "Mayor," he replied, his tone implying she was a particularly slow child. "Streamlining is achieved through adherence to established procedure, not by its circumvention. The Grolt way is proven. You simply need to adapt. All necessary instructions are clearly outlined in Volume 72, Appendix C, of the Colonial Integration Framework." It was during one particularly heated town meeting, as the colonists neared their wits' end, that Agnes Periwinkle, the quiet, bespectacled woman who ran the colony's small library and data archive, finally spoke up. Agnes had a secret love for intricate puzzles, the kind that involved untangling complex knots of logic. For days, she had been poring over the Grolt regulations, not with anger, but with a strange, focused curiosity. "You know," Agnes said softly, her voice cutting through the frustrated hubbub, "these Grolt are very, very specific about their rules. They pride themselves on it." She tapped a data slate displaying a particularly convoluted flowchart. "And they've given us all the rules, every single one." A small, almost mischievous smile touched her lips. "What if," she paused, looking around the room, "what if we followed every single rule, to the absolute, pedantic, most literal letter?" A confused silence fell over the room. Then, young Timmy, who had been trying to get a permit for a new solar panel for his mother's hydroponics bay for 3 weeks, snorted. "That's what we've been trying to do, Agnes. It's impossible." "No, Timmy," Agnes said, her eyes gleaming. "You've been trying to get a solar panel. You haven't been trying to follow the rules as an art form. For instance, Grolt Regulation 487C, subparagraph 12, states that all interdepartmental communications must be triplicated and time-stamped by an authorized chronometer. Are we doing that for every single email we send to each other about Grolt forms?" Mayor Thompson stared at Agnes, a slow understanding dawning on her face. "Agnes," she said, "are you suggesting what I think you're suggesting?" Agnes just smiled. "They want order, Mayor. Let's give them order, an unforgettable amount of order." And so began the symphony of compliance. The first movement was subtle. Every colonist who needed anything, no matter how trivial, began by filing every conceivable form. A request for a replacement shovel for the community garden now included a 3-page environmental soil disturbance projection, a material fatigue analysis for the old shovel, a worker ergonomic impact study for the new one, and a projected 5-year maintenance and depreciation schedule. As per Grolt Fixed Asset Directive 112F, each form was filled out with excruciating detail, citing the relevant Grolt regulations in footnotes. The second movement involved communication. The colonists began flooding the Grolt administrative channels, conveniently provided by Sub-Administrator Vorg for efficient query resolution, with requests for clarification. These were not angry demands, but meticulously crafted inquiries into the minutiae of Grolt law. "Dear Sub-Administrator Vorg," one such message began, "regarding Form 88 Omega, subsection Delta, paragraph 3, line 7, word 4, utilize. Could you please clarify if this term, in the context of atmospheric particle dispersal units operating when ambient humidity is certified above 78.4%, but verifiably below 79.1%, as per Regulation Gamma 7, Chart B, encompasses the colloquial human understanding of employ, the more technical Grolt term, deploy, or the financially connotative, leverage. Furthermore, does the choice of term impact the required triplicate carbon copy distribution as outlined in Directive Alpha 9 concerning interspecies semantic consistency?" The Grolt at first were pleased. "Ah," Sub-Administrator Vorg noted to Chief Administrator Lorgax Zorp, "the humans are finally engaging with the procedural framework. See, Lorgax, My report indicated a 300% increase in form submissions this cycle. Lorgax Zorp's mandibles clicked in satisfaction. Excellent, Vorg. Order prevails. The third movement was meetings. The Grolt regulations were filled with clauses about mandatory consultations, review boards, and procedural oversight committees. The humans of New Harmony began invoking every single one. They established the New Harmony Subcommittee for Stapler Replenishment and Office Supply Parity, which then formally requested an urgent joint session with the Grolt Directorate of Stationary Logistics and Resource Allocation, Provisional Branch, to discuss the alarming lack of Grolt-approved paper clips. They cited obscure Grolt bylaws to schedule these meetings at the most inconvenient times, often requiring Grolt officials to be present during their designated nutrient paste ingestion cycles or mandated carapace polishing periods. Sub-Administrator Vorg found himself buried. His pristine office was now piled high with physical forms. His data slate chimed incessantly with clarification requests, and his meticulously planned schedule was a ruin of overlapping, human-demanded committee meetings. His optical sensors began to develop a distinct, irregular twitch. His daily reports to Lorgax Zorp became less triumphant and more peppered with phrases like unforeseen data volume and query backlog. The crescendo of the symphony arrived with what would later be known as the Great Colonial Coffee Crisis. Martha, who ran the small community cafe, decided she wanted to install a new, slightly larger coffee machine. Following the new colonial doctrine, she, with the help of Agnes Periwinkle and a team of volunteers, prepared the application. It was a masterpiece. 712 pages long, it included a full-spectrum analysis of coffee bean emissions, a decibel-level projection for the grinder, a structural integrity report for the floor beneath the machine, thermal dissipation charts, waste product disposal protocols cross-referenced with Grolt environmental directives, and an exhaustive list of all potential allergens, including those only affecting species from the Magellanic Clouds, just in case. All supporting documents were correctly filed in perfect triplicate, each page hand-stamped with a potato-cut stamp of a coffee cup, as there was no Grolt regulation against decorative, non-obstructive additions to official documents. When this perfectly compliant, monstrously large request was uploaded to the New Harmony Grolt administrative server, the system choked. Lights flickered in the Grolt temporary headquarters. A low whine emanated from their central processor. Then, with a pathetic digital sigh, it crashed. Not just the local server, but the crash cascaded, sending error flags and unprocessed data packets careening into the regional Grolt network. Chief Administrator Lorgax Zorp, whose own office was now beginning to look suspiciously like Vorg's, was furious. "Vorg," he bellowed, his voice causing a stack of applications for atmospheric adjustment permits to flutter to the floor. "What, by the rings of Kroll, is happening?" Vorg, whose carapace had lost some of its sheen and whose antennae drooped noticeably, could only stammer. "They are complying, Chief Administrator. Sir, they are complying with everything. Too much. Far, far too much." Lorgax Zorp, in a rare display of Grolt initiative that bypassed 3 levels of required authorization, established a direct communication link with Mayor Thompson. "Mayor," he transmitted, his image flickering on her office screen. This deluge of paperwork, this procedural paralysis, cease this mockery." Mayor Thompson, the picture of innocence, widened her eyes. "Mockery, Administrator Zorp. I assure you, we are merely trying our utmost to adhere to your most esteemed and comprehensive guidelines. We have taken your words to heart. We wouldn't want to be seen as chaotic, after all. We are diligently following every rule. Is there a particular rule you would like us to stop following?" Lorgax Zorp opened his mandibles, then closed them. He seemed to be having trouble processing the question. The chaos wasn't confined to New Harmony. Grolt administrative hubs in neighboring sectors began reporting system slowdowns, data corruption, and inexplicable requests for clarification on rules they hadn't thought about in centuries. The Grolt Empire's famed efficiency was grinding to a halt, all because one small human colony had decided to take them at their word. The situation became so dire that the Grolt High Command dispatched Glaurgen the Meticulous, a legendary systems analyst whose ability to parse bureaucratic structure was said to be almost precognitive. Glaurgen was ancient, even by Grolt standards, and had personally overseen the codification of 17 versions of the Grand Manual. He arrived on New Harmony, not with pronouncements, but with a request for all data pertinent to the human colony's interactions. He sequestered himself for 3 solar cycles. When Glaurgen emerged, he addressed Lorgax Zorp and an emergency council of panicked Grolt administrators via secure comms. His voice was dry, like old parchment. "I have analyzed the human methodologies," he stated. "They have not broken a single Grolt regulation. They have not circumvented any directive. They have not falsified any forms." A ripple of confusion went through the council. Lorgax Zorp leaned forward. "Then, what is the issue, Analyst Glaurgen? Is it a flaw in our systems?" Glaurgen paused. "The issue, Chief Administrator, is the humans themselves. They are not using the rules to achieve order. They are using our rules to orchestrate a symphony of systemic collapse. Their chaos, as you term it, is not an absence of intellect, but a terrifyingly fluid and adaptive form of it. They have weaponized our precision, our complexity, our very identity against us." He almost sounded impressed. "This is not incompetence. This is artistic. They have achieved malicious compliance on a scale I would not have thought possible for any species, lacking at least 3 additional cognitive processing lobes." The implications of Glaurgen's report were staggering. The Grolt, a species that defined itself by its mastery of complex systems, had been outsystemed. Lorgax Zorp's career was effectively over. Rumor had it he was later reassigned to cataloging dust mite migration patterns on a forgotten moon, a task with minimal paperwork. Some garbled transmissions from New Harmony during its final days of Grolt guidance reportedly captured Lorgax muttering about infinite forms and the existential horror of the sentient paperclip. An emergency directive, coded Crimson Quill, flashed across the Grolt hegemony. Effective immediately. Cease all integration and procedural oversight operations in Human Sector Designation 7G New Harmony. Quarantine all procedural data originating from said sector. Initiate Project Simplify. An urgent, hegemony-wide review and drastic streamlining of all Grolt bureaucratic processes. The irony was lost on most Grolt, but not on Agnes Periwinkle, who chuckled when she heard the news. The Grolt ships departed New Harmony with a haste that bordered on panic. The colonists watched them go, then promptly dismantled the temporary Grolt administrative offices and used the high-quality Grolt alloy to build a new, much-needed public brewery. Agnes Periwinkle was awarded the Golden Stapler of Freedom in a town ceremony, along with a lifetime supply of Mayor Thompson's best cider. The tale of New Harmony spread through the galactic networks like wildfire. The Grolt's reputation for unshakable order and bureaucratic invincibility took a significant, almost comical blow. Other species, those who had long chafed under Grolt procedural impositions or were considering similar uplift programs for younger races, took careful note. Humanity gained a new, somewhat alarming reputation. They weren't just seen as messy and emotional anymore. They were now understood as a species capable of mastering and then gleefully subverting any system, no matter how complex, if sufficiently provoked. The phrase, "Don't let the humans read your fine print," became a common warning in diplomatic circles. The Grolt, humbled and deeply confused, began a multi-generational, painstaking effort to simplify their colossal bureaucracy. Some younger, more radical Grolt thinkers even began to cautiously study the human anomaly, wondering if creative interpretation of established parameters might, in fact, be a highly advanced problem-solving technique. The universe, it seemed, had a peculiar sense of humor. And humanity, in its own unique, chaotic way, had just taught one of its oldest, most rigid empires a lesson it would never forget. Sometimes, the most terrifying force in the galaxy isn't a death ray, but a perfectly filed form, submitted in quintuplicate.